Good evening, everyone. I officially call to order this meeting of the Collingswood Board of Education. Appropriate notice has been advertised. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu?
Here.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
Ms. Henry?
Here.
Mrs. Maya?
Here.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Here.
Mrs. Savarino?
Here.
Oh, there's Mrs. Seltzer?
Here.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia?
Here.
Mr. Stotts?
Here.
Mr. Dilkis?
Here.
Mrs. Caden?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There is no executive session at this time, so without further ado, we move to our presentations of our Teachers and Staff of the Year.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out this evening as we honor our Teachers and Staff of the Year. I first just want to say on behalf of the district how proud we are to be in all of your company tonight. This is my favorite night of the year. Last week was my favorite day of the year, and we get to surprise people with the awards. And I just cannot think of a more deserving group of individuals who are here with us tonight who are going to be honored. I'm going to shift from the order that's on the agenda in case you had a Collingswood agenda for tonight. I'm going to go in a little bit of a different order just so you're aware. So we are going to begin this evening by honoring Elaine Gizzo, and Dr. Jack McMullen is going to come up and say a few words about her now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. The sculptor Michelangelo was once asked how he produced such beautiful and exquisite works of art. To this question, the artist responded, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." This evening, it's my honor and privilege to speak on behalf of another visionary artist and our Collingswood Middle School Teacher of the Year, Miss Elaine Gizzo. Ms. Gizzo teaches our pre-vocational class at CMS and is constantly looking to create experiences for her students in and outside of the classroom that will make them grow and flourish and feel the potential that she knows they possess inside of them. Ms. Gizzo cares deeply and sincerely about her students. She has a true gift for lifting people up and for assisting her students in challenging their own abilities, and in the process, challenging the limiting ideas that they may hold about themselves. Michelangelo was once asked how he produced such beautiful and exquisite works of art, to which he responded, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." Ms. Gizzo, thank you for seeing the angel in the marble, and thank you for your amazing artistry. Congratulations on your well-deserved selection as Teacher of the Year for Collingswood Middle School. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Elaine Gizzo.
Hi, thank you so much for allowing me to be here and working in this district. I just want to take you on a little short journey of my professional career. 28 years ago, I started off as a 7th and 8th grade science teacher. I did that for about 5 years. I really liked it, but I left for an opportunity to be in one of those really fun .com companies where I was going to be teaching teachers on the up-and-coming, the new Genesis programs and Google Classroom, but it wasn't those things. It was something called School Cruiser, and it didn't quite make it. With all of the traveling all over the country and first class and pool tables and scooters in the office, that just wasn't very sustainable. So before that flopped, I really liked it, but I left for another opportunity, and I was in a corporate training position, and I took other positions in the HR department, and I met really wonderful people who I'm still friendly with today. I really liked it, but then I left, and I took time off to be with my kids for 4 or 5 years, and that was the most wonderful experience. Then, after a few years, I went to go back to work, being an IA in a classroom like I have today. And I was in there for about 15 minutes when I finally had my aha moment. I said, this is what I want to be doing with the rest of my life. I was 40 years old and I finally knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I got my special ed cert, got my job here in Collingswood. And since then, I've had the privilege of doing my dream job. And I always say, I just don't like my job. I love my job. I'll always be a Panther. There's nothing you can do about it. Thank you all for this gift in my life, and I'm honored to be recognized. And thank you for supporting my program, and thank you to my family.
We would now like to welcome our High School Teacher of the Year, Miss Erin Waller, accompanied by Mrs. Vesper, who will be saying some words for her.
Well, if I can get through this without crying, thanks to Elaine's, whew, she got me. Okay, here we go, Miss Waller. Tonight, I have the honor of embarrassing Miss Erin Waller by talking about how wonderful of a teacher and overall school community member she's become in Collingswood. I won't embarrass you too much, just a little bit. For those of you who don't know, Erin is a proud member of the special education department at the high school. When Miss Waller started at Collingswood High School, I'm not sure she would have ever thought she'd be in her current position, but in my mind, there's no one better who would fit into that role. The energy and creativity she brings to the department and the school community to teach students is inspiring. When nominating her, Miss Waller's colleagues consistently mentioned her admirable and tireless work ethic. I'm not actually sure if she sleeps. I think she just prepares and coaches. That's what she does. She spends hours behind the scenes prepping to ensure that what she is teaching her students is relevant for them. This does not only mean teaching how to make cool, on-trend apparel or organizing orders. Miss Waller works to create real-life vocational experiences for her students as they enter the workforce during or after high school. As part of the teaching staff, Miss Waller works with a variety of types of learners and also coaches lacrosse. The school store has become a place where Coach Waller's student athletes, as well as the students in her classes, come to visit throughout the day. This is thanks to Erin's ability to create a safe place for everyone. She offers all students a combination of tough love and support, which in turn promotes their successes. She understands how to be a collaborator, a communicator, and a mentor for students and staff. Her peers also said, when they voted for her as Staff Member of the Year, that Ms. Waller goes above and beyond for her students to teach them how to make the best products possible. When there's any type of sporting event, the school store is the place to be. They make products for charity events, for the high school sports teams, or when there's things like Super Bowls and World Series events. So there's really no question that Erin Waller deserves the honor of being named as the High School Staff Member of the Year. With her guidance and encouragement, her students grow in maturity and gain confidence as they move through their time at Collingswood High School. Colleagues can always count on Ms. Waller to provide an ear or to listen or to bounce new ideas off of. I am really grateful that I've had the chance to watch Erin grow into the fantastic teacher who she is today. Congratulations on receiving the High School Teacher of the Year award.
I wish that I would be as eloquent as Elaine, but I don't know why we chose for Elaine to go first. As you see, I have my lengthy speech written here, but truly, it is such an honor. When I started here 7 years ago, I never thought as a special ed teacher that I'd be standing here. And it was nice that I'm alongside Elaine, another special education teacher, and I think part of that goes to show the strength in our department. And of course in our building, but we do have a special connection. I wouldn't be able to do it without all of them, especially my family, my supervisor, and I'm just really, really happy to be standing here. It's just been a really privilege, and I'm honored.
So Mrs. Vesper is also going to stay here, and I'd like to welcome up Tatlin Smith-Williams, who is our high school instructional assistant of the year.
Okay. I don't think I'm going to embarrass you. I'm just going to tell a little story first. Okay. Okay. I'm going to start by talking about how I met Mrs. Smith-Williams. One day about 7 years ago, right? Yes. While I was preparing for my day as a school psychologist in the high school, the main office called and said a new instructional assistant was here and she needed her assignment information. Since at that time I was not involved in the hiring process, I had no idea who I was about to meet. So I went to the high school and I met her. For some reason that I can't remember now, it turns out Mrs. Smith-Williams was needed at Sharp Elementary School. So she and I walked to my car and I drove her there. While we walked, we talked about what brought her to Collingswood and her past experience. On that day, I learned that she was a retired educator who had recently moved to the area. She retired as a principal, came here to be near family, and decided she wanted to work with students again. And to our good fortune, she chose Collingswood. I don't really remember how Mrs. Smith-Williams returned to the high school, but her colleagues and I are so grateful that she did. As her classroom teacher, Mrs. Brown, said when she nominated her, Mrs. Smith-Williams is a pillar of strength and support for the young adults and staff in the Ignite program. She is fiercely, and I say that seriously, Mrs. Brown said fiercely, and we mean it, committed to ensuring the students succeed. In order to best understand the students with whom she works, I found out that Mrs. Smith-Williams is always taking classes on her own time and reading to ensure she understands neurodiversity to the fullest extent possible. Throughout the day, if I am lucky enough to cross paths with Mrs. Smith-Williams, I'm always greeted with a smile and a warm hello, Mrs. Vesper. I look forward to the smile, and I know her students do also. We are quite lucky here in Collingswood to have found such an extraordinary instructional assistant, and I'm pleased to congratulate Mrs. Smith-Williams for receiving the well-deserved honor of the Secondary Campus's Instructional Assistant of the Year Award.
Thank you all. It was February 2016 when I got my visa to migrate. I said, how am I going to do it? I was hoping I would get it at the end of June, but it came February. I called my brother, who was the superintendent for our district of schools, and I said, I've got my visa to migrate. What is the first step I should take? He said, you have given 28 years in the system. You cannot resign. You have to take early retirement. It was in April 2016. I went to the Ministry of Education. I filled out my retirement package. I remember when my director said to me, are you sure you're making the right choice? I said, okay, I'll pray about it. I called my sister-in-law, who is now here with me, and she said, take up the offer. I came here 2016, May, and I said, what am I going to do? I'll come August 2016, I will now be a retired teacher. I spoke to her daughter, who is now here with me. She said, apply to ESS. Luckily, I got that job before I went back to Jamaica. I went back and I handed over all my documents back to the Ministry of Education. My teacher said to me, Mrs. Williams, I don't think you're making the right choice. How are you going to leave us? I said to them, I came and I saw Beersheba, and I will leave Beersheba here with you. Two of my teachers called me, Miss, can you please relinquish that paper that you have sent in? No, you need to revoke it. I said, no, I've made my decision and I'm going to migrate. It was October 17, 2016. I stepped through these doors. As Ms. Vesper said, she was the first person I met. I went to shop for a day. Diana, who was our superintendent, called me and she said, you're supposed to be at Collingswood. Coming here wasn't a mistake. I have transitioned to a new country, a new environment, a new culture, but I was received with welcome arms. And I know I have grown a lot since I've been here, learning the new culture. But my philosophy always, wherever I go, I should leave an indelible mark. Thank you all.
Well, I don't know how we're going to top that one. But up next is our high school support staff member of the year, Miss Latoya Goodall, accompanied by Mr. Dan Whalen, who will be saying a few words on her behalf.
It is, come on over. It is with great honor and pleasure that I stand before you today to speak on behalf of Mrs. Latoya Goodall, our esteemed high school support staff of the year. In just a few short years, Latoya has become an indispensable part of our school community. It's truly difficult to imagine a time without her presence within these walls. Colleagues have described her as everything for everyone, a rock, a sounding board, a cheerleader, and a beacon of positivity and change. I wholeheartedly agree with each of these descriptors. Latoya embodies all these qualities and more, touching the lives of countless individuals in our school. As I sat down to prepare this speech, my mind was flooded with memories of Latoya's tireless support. One particular moment from last spring stands out in my mind. I was rushing around the building, consumed by the chaos of a typical school day, when I noticed Latoya walking out of the guidance office. Spotting me from a distance, she approached me with a kind smile. I'd received some challenging news that week. Rather than bombarding me with questions or concerns, Latoya simply asked, "Can I give you a hug?" It may seem like a small gesture, but it meant the world to me right then, and I will never forget. That incident reminded me of a powerful story shared by the author Simon Sinek. He once said that true leadership is demonstrated when someone asks how your day is going and they actually care about your answer. Latoya exemplifies this kind of leadership. She consistently makes small but meaningful deposits of empathy, compassion, and positivity, which accumulate over time to form the bedrock of very strong relationships. Every single person who nominated Latoya spoke of her remarkable energy, She possesses a unique ability to gauge the atmosphere of a situation and help those around her find their balance, whether it's through offering a comforting hug, lending a listening ear, or unleashing one of her signature cheers from the back of the room. There it is. I was going to attempt that, but... In the year 2023, being a guidance counselor is no easy task. LaToya devotes her time to sitting with students, meticulously planning their academic futures and guiding them through the trials and tribulations of adolescence. Despite the demands of her role, she still manages to lead several extracurricular activities. She choreographs our annual musical, spearheads our Junior Black Student Union, advises our dance team, and created The Circle, a safe space where students of all grades can seek support and have their voices heard. Moreover, LaToya is a powerful advocate for social justice and inclusion, serving as a leader on our DEI committee. She then hones home to her 4 wonderful daughters and her husband. She manages all these responsibilities with grace and style. Ms. LaToya Goodall is not only an exceptional support staff member, but also a true force of positive change in our school community. Her resolute dedication, infectious energy, and unwavering commitment to the well-being of others make her a role model for us all. So tonight, let us celebrate LaToya's remarkable contributions to the CHS community and express our deep gratitude for the indelible impact she has made on so many lives. Congratulations.
Thank you. I would have never described myself in that way. It can be hard to hear people say nice things about you, but I appreciate it and I hold it in my spirit. Thank you, Dan. I extend great gratitude to first my family, my husband Pete and 4 daughters, Aya, Lydia, Sol, and Nova. Yes, 4 girls. Ooh-wee. But Pete is an educator of almost 20 years, and he understands how much this work, which is our work, means to me and how much I pour into it, and he supports that. So thank you, babe, and thank you, daughters. An overflow of gratitude to the staff of CHS. We all know that it is quite the time to be an educator, but to see your continuous care and resilience and hope encourages me every day. Anyone who knows me knows I'm going to gloat about the counseling department of Collingswood High School. So to Donna Willis, Kylie Smith, Matt Freeman, Kevin Adams, Barb Wister, who hired me, Tracy Taylor, and Betty Jo Prince, thank you so much for receiving me as I am. Thank you for pushing me to be a better counselor and a better human with genuine care. I really feel that from you all, and I appreciate it. I couldn't ask for a better work family. Before I depart, I just wanted to take a moment to implore all of us to get back to prioritizing humanity. At the end of the day, every last one of us want the same things. We all want to be loved. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be cared for. And if we can get back to that, if we can bring that awareness into every interaction that we have every single day, in every situation, treating every single person how we want to be treated and how we want our children to be treated, things will get better and we will be better for it. Thank you so much for this honor.
Next, we will be honoring our Preschool Instructional Assistant of the Year, Miss Cindy Rossi, and we'd like to invite Mr. Newman to the podium to say a few words on Cindy's behalf.
Okay, this is easy for me. I love Cindy Rossi's energy in the building. If you were there, you'd see it. She's the type of person that in the morning, that's the person that you want to see. Throughout the course of the day, that's the person that you want to see. If anything is going on that could stress you a little bit, that's the face you want to see. All right? She's just one of those people, she can pick you up. All right, so that was just off the script. I'm going to see if I can actually get on script here. Okay. Cindy has worked for Collingswood Public Schools as an instructional assistant for almost 2 decades. While her placements have varied, a good part of her years have been spent as an instructional assistant with Collingswood Pre-K program. Cindy is the kind of assistant who sees something that needs to be done and takes care of it without asking. She is kind, compassionate, patient, especially with adults. And you know how important that is when, because adults can be interesting. This is why she has become the face of Sharp School, and especially in the mornings, greeting the students, parents on a daily basis and always with a positive attitude and a smile. Outside the classroom, she has assisted with the Proud program. The Proud program we put signs on the lawns of students that have been nominated, for being great in the building, grades, any reason to promote a kid and to celebrate a kid. Well, Cindy is a part of that program. So she'll actually go out to the lawns and stick signs in the lawn, and the signs say, "My teacher is proud of me." As a Collingswood resident, Cindy has volunteered for positions throughout the community, such as at the Scottish Rite. She has held various PTA positions throughout the district. Additionally, her work during the summer at Roberts Pool, as well as her work at the Collingswood Farmers Market and local animal shelter, has helped Cindy in establishing and maintaining relationships in Collingswood with Collingswood residents. Cindy has also brought her love of nature into the classroom. Yearly, she conducts lessons in multiple classrooms, and she'll use geckos. So she'll hold the gecko, and she's not squeamish. The life cycle of butterflies, she's very, she'll get her hands in there. The whole worm thing that she does, she has a compost, and it's great for hands-on science as far as the experience with students. But when you come in there and you actually see it come, to life, what goes on in the classroom, it's actually pretty cool. Kids get their hands in the worms. I did it a couple times. I'm not scared of worms, but it's just dirt. It's just a lot of dirt on the desk. But the kids are playing with the worms. Some are like, I don't think so, but, she does a nice job, touch the worm. So it's actually pretty cool. But it's no wonder when there's a stray dog, which we've had, a stray puppy, they come onto the campus. She's the one who's involved in making sure that it gets, returned back to the owner. And it's no wonder when we have a creepy crawly in the building, it does happen. She's on board to help out. So thank you, Cindy, for all of that. Cindy often promotes the preschool program, and as a district as a whole. As a district, we should thank her for who she is and the energy that she brings. But she also had 3 of her own kids come through this district, so we thank you for that. So at this point, I wanted to say that Cindy is a big proponent of Collingswood School District, and we are a big proponent of Cindy Rossi. Thank you, Cindy.
I don't have a lot to say, but I do want to say thank you so much. I feel very honored. I love Collingswood. I absolutely love Collingswood. I've been at Sharp School basically for 17 years. When my youngest son, Jake, went into kindergarten at Garfield, I thought, well, I'm involved in PTA. Why not? Why don't I be involved and get paid for it too? So I became an IA, and I can't say enough about Collingswood the town, Collingswood School District, just everything. And I have to say, Sharp School, I love Sharp School. I love the students, I love the staff, I love everybody there. It's just a fabulous place to work. So I just want to say thank you so much, and Collingswood, yes. I love it, yes.
We are now going to honor our District Support Staff Member of the Year, Mr. Matt Remchuk, and Mr. Keith Higginbotham will speak on his behalf.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know him already, I'd like to introduce Matt Remchuk, our District Educational Support Staff Member of the Year. Matt is maintenance foreman for Collingswood and Oakland school districts, and to describe his role as challenging would be an understatement. Buildings and Grounds Department handles all building trade services within both districts. That includes carpentry, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and grounds care. We cover close to 400,000 square feet spread between 9 locations. In addition to all of our regularly scheduled tasks, we also provide shared services for 7 surrounding school districts. And Matt serves as the department point person in all of those areas. And no matter what the day has in store, Matt is up for the challenge. Whether it's a routine assignment, a special project, or an unexpected occurrence, he'll be there to take the lead. His positive attitude and commitment to excellence shine as an example for all the employees under his charge. He's proven himself time and time again to have the dedication and work ethic that is necessary to ensure the successful continuity of education throughout the district. So congratulations, Matt, and thanks for making the Buildings and Grounds Department a truly award-winning team. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you very much. It is an honor. This is probably going to be the shortest speech of the entire evening. I am not much of a talker. I am more of a doer. But thank you very much. I've been in Collingswood for 10 years now, and it's the best job I've ever had. From the people to the students, just to the community who support us in the maintenance and custodial staff each year. Thank you very much.
Our next person to honor this evening was to be Miss Lively, who is our elementary teacher of the year. But unfortunately, Miss Lively could not be here tonight. She had tickets to a Phillies game. And so despite the fact that I was born and raised for a good part of my life in the Bronx and might root for another team, I suppose we could find that to be acceptable. And so finally, this evening, we will be honoring our elementary support staff member of the year, Mrs. Celia Taglang, accompanied by Mr. Brian Kulak, and a few words from me as well.
Hold on one second. Just got to get through the advertisements. You know it. I won't play the whole thing, but if you're a fan of The Office like me, every office, every organization in America is The Office, made up of people. So tonight, we're here because of people. It shouldn't have taken a generational pandemic for us to start talking about relationships as if they are new or novel. They are not. And I'm here because of relationships. So, on The Office, the most understated relationship was between Pam Beasley and Michael Scott. The face of The Office was Pam. When you walked in, you saw Pam. She smiled and she directed you to where you needed to be. Sometimes Pam keeps the wolves from the door and doesn't let them get to Michael Scott. Sometimes Pam answers the phone. Hello? Mr. Kulak, is he in? Really loudly while she looks at me to see if I want to take that call, and I'm like, I'm not taking that call. Sometimes she walks kids down to their rooms. Sometimes she cleans up cuts. Sometimes she cleans up snot. She does so with a smile all the time because she is the face of Tatum, and she has been for years. When I got the job 5 years ago when Jen and I switched, 2 things were true. One, I was inheriting this absurd staff I didn't deserve, and I was inheriting this amazing human I still do not deserve. The Office probably went off the air about 10 years ago, And if you remember, at one point, Michael was leaving to go be with Holly, and his plane took off, and it was Pam who was at the window waving goodbye sadly. Luckily, our season and series finale is years away. It better be. But when that time comes, the roles will be reversed. It will be me who will be crying, probably in the fetal position, wishing that Cecilia were still here. She is one of, if not, the greatest people I've ever met. As I mentioned, I don't deserve her. She keeps me in check when I have Michael Scott ideas. She's like, Brad, do you think this is a really good idea? And like 80% of the time, it's a terrible idea that she talks me out of, because she's intuitive, she's kind, she's wise, she's Miss Tagline, she's Cecilia, she's Mimi. Soon you'll have another name in about a month, whatever your mother-in-law name is going to be. But she's always, to me, Cecilia. Congratulations, I love you.
So I have a confession. I've never seen The Office. I have no idea what that was about. So I'm going to move on. But I could not miss the opportunity to speak a little bit about Mrs. Taglang. 14 years ago, when I began my journey in Collingswood, the first person I met at Tatum School was Mrs. Taglang. I was an extremely nervous first-year administrator, but within the first 5 minutes of being greeted with her smile and her enthusiasm, I knew I was in the best hands. From that point forward, I came to understand what a true gift Mrs. Taglang is to the Collingswood community. In essence, she's the bright star that shines upon everyone who crosses her path. I have always appreciated and respected Mrs. Taglang's interactions with the school community. Each time someone comes to the main office, despite their reason for being there, sometimes someone might be in trouble, she offers a warm smile, lends an ear to listen, and shows them love and kindness. It is clear that her connection to our students, families, and staff is of utmost importance, and that their needs come first. So it goes without saying that Mrs. Taglang is without a doubt the most popular staff member at Tatum School. Sorry, Brian. She greets everyone with a smile and a warm heart, and because of that, she is adored far beyond Tatum. While Mrs. Taglang certainly exhibits the greatest level of professionalism in all aspects of her role, she has always been known to put the personal needs of people first. Throughout the years, I have witnessed Mrs. Taglang demonstrate numerous selfless acts in service of caring for others. She treats every situation individually, assures that everyone is comfortable and taken care of, and will stop at nothing to make a person's day better. It's easy to understand why Mrs. Taglang is a bright light in our universe, and so I'd like to share a brief excerpt from a book, because Mrs. Taglang knows I can't do anything without that. It's called The Man Made of Stars, to highlight the way we all feel about her. At the top of the hill, I saw the strangest, most wonderful sight. The man made of stars reached into his bag and pulled out a beautiful glowing thing, something that seemed to be made entirely out of light. He held it and threw it, and the glittering light floated higher and higher until it became another star in the sky. The man made of stars reached into his bag again and pulled out another glowing light. It was so beautiful that I walked up to see it closely. "What is it?" I asked. "Well," he said, "this one must be pure love. See how bright it is?" "Where do you find them?" "Oh, they're everywhere," he said. "Look up at the stars. What do you see?" "They glow." "And so do you," he said. "You are made of kindness and possibility and brilliance. Everything you are made of, the stars are made of. And though the stars shine only at night, when it is dark, your light shines always." Mrs. Taglang, I have cherished getting to know you and your family over the years. I will never have the words to express how much your friendship and support has meant to me during my time in Colls. You are so deserving of this award, and I am grateful that I am here today to celebrate with you. Thank you for being you.
One thing I am is very emotional, so hopefully I can get through this. This is an incredible moment for me. I am honored and grateful to receive the recognition as the Elementary Support Staff Member of the Year. First, I'd like to thank Brian Your energy, intelligence, and caring personality emanates throughout Tatum School. I'm so fortunate to have the opportunity to work with you. To Jen McFarland, I don't know how to say thank you. You have been a wonderful friend, mentor, and the most generous person I've ever met. Thank you for always being there for me and my family. To Joe Gerzik, thank you for hiring me and giving me this opportunity to work for the Collingswood School District. To the teachers and staff, past and present at Tatum and the district, I truly enjoy working with all of you and form some wonderful friendships. And thank you to my sidekick, Hillary, for always helping me in the office. And to my family, Tim, Hannah, Aubrey, Grace, thank you all for support and listening to all my crazy stories. Thank you, everyone.
So that concludes the presentation. I'm going to go into committee of the whole, and then thought we could say something else because I certainly don't want to end the good feelings just yet. So quickly, can I get a motion to enter committee of the whole?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we have a couple of topics that we need to discuss for committee of the whole, but before we get to those, I just wanted to take a moment on behalf of all of the board members here to congratulate all of the teachers and support staff of the year, and to just kind of take a moment because this has been a challenging year for everyone, for teachers, for administrators, for parents, for students coming back from the pandemic, as Brian mentioned, just kind of reeling from how much that impacted all of our lives and has changed the way most of us, I think about almost everything, but certainly about education and how we interact with each other. And some of that has been for the good, and some of that has been some challenges that, we need to work on. But, the majority of us here have students in all of our schools and have experienced some of the wonderful teachers and support staff that were honored tonight, some that are sitting in the audience or listening at home, and they are the backbone of our entire school district, and I don't think any board member up here would disagree with that statement, that without the wonderful, caring teaching staff and support staff, we wouldn't be here, and that all of us are incredibly grateful to the work, the tireless work. A lot of us are also either current or former educators, and we know how absolutely tough and thankless this job can often be. And I can only imagine post-pandemic how much more difficult and more challenging it has become, since I haven't been in the classroom post-pandemic. And we thank you. We thank you for sticking with us through these challenging times, and we are committed, not just because we have kids in this school district, although that certainly helps as a motivator, but because we want Collingswood schools to continue to be the place you want to be and the place that you are proud of. And so thank you so much. This is always my favorite board meeting of the year, as Jen said too, because celebrating the wonderful work that the teachers and the staff do is what we're all here for, along with also celebrating all the wonderful things that our kids do, that they do because of the staff that helps them get there. So with that being said, now we have some less inspiring stuff to talk about, but it's still important that we use this time during this meeting to talk about a few other things. One of them we need Ms. McPartland for, and I feel like, do you want to come? Okay, perfect. So that I didn't want you to be standing in front of us exactly. We asked, there's been a lot of discussion over the past couple of board meetings and in between about our entrance age policy, and we wanted to talk about some clarifications. Actually, I'm just going to pause a minute because nobody has to stay if they were here to honor the teachers. So if you guys want to head out, we'll start this in 1 second. Okay, I think we're a little bit better now. I didn't want the commotion of everyone leaving to make it so that it was hard for us to focus here. So anyway, entrance age policy has been a big topic of discussion for the past couple of months, and we asked Ms. McPartland if she would come talk us through some of the clarifications about the changes in procedure, but also something that she shared with us at our last committee meeting was how detailed the process is and how much information that the pre-K program is able to gather about students to really have a good picture of what their readiness for kindergarten would look like. So I'm going to let Ms. McPartland kind of explain this stuff to us, but I know she's standing over there kind of half looking at us, but it's a committee of the whole section, so we can ask questions as well.
Okay, thank you. So one of the things I wanted to do tonight was actually just really to highlight the work in our preschool program to start. I feel like it's really important for us to understand what is involved in preschool expansion aid. And I think that by providing an overview of what is offered and the amount of detail that the DOE actually put into establishing funding and a specific criteria in terms of code, we can glean a lot of information about how we come to decisions and how we prepare our students for kindergarten in particular. So we are fortunate in this district that several years ago we acquired preschool education aid. The structure is that we have full-day preschool for 3 and 4-year-olds. Our program is free, and we typically, at this point in time, have been able to enroll most of our students to date. We do have a small wait list at this time, and typically over the course of the last several years, particularly with the pandemic as well, we did have some students who were on a wait list who were able to enroll. Our classroom size is 15 students. We have 1 teacher and 1 instructional assistant, and that is by design. And that is an important factor because we know that we are working with mixed age students in 3 and 4-year-old setting. One of the things that I think is really important for us to understand about preschool education in terms of the design as well is that there is a lot of oversight, and the program offers several roles that are important and integral to the overall success of the program. The support staff focus on the social emotional learning needs of students. They ensure that we have developmentally appropriate practices, and they ensure that the foundational support that is needed for our youngest learners is in place. So we have a dedicated P3 supervisor, Mrs. Floyd, and her role is oversight of the program throughout both of our districts actually, and she is in charge of ensuring that we are following code and expectations. She also leads our preschool to kindergarten transition team, which is another important point that I wanted to make because there is a direct line between what we are offering in preschool leading into kindergarten years. We have a preschool intervention and referral specialist, also known as a PERS, who works directly with teachers and families to address social, emotional, and academic needs. We also have a preschool instructional coach who works directly with teachers and families to address social, emotional, and academic needs in support of the curriculum itself. And finally, we have the fortune to have a full-time social worker and a community and parent involvement specialist. Again, this person works directly with our teachers and families to address social, emotional learning needs, and they are involved in the community to bring voice to our program. Overall, the program for preschool provides a very specific process to ensure that we are meeting the needs of every single learner who walks through our doors. So initially, during the years of preschool, every student is provided what's called the Initial Screening Early Screening Inventory. It's also known as the EASY. It's mandated by PEA code. All general education students are screened yearly regardless of their age or entry into our program. So in other words, if you are here with us for 3, then you will again be here with us for 4, and you will receive the EASY screening both years. Screening is conducted by age appropriateness, and the domains include visual and motor adaptive skills, language and cognition, and gross motor. Upon review of the EASY and the results, students are rated in 3 different categories, just as designated by the EASY. They're very basic terms. Okay is one of them, rescreen and refer. So why is this important? First of all, it's the first step to identifying students of the typical range for indicated areas. And for the first trimester of the school year, a student who emerges under the rescreen or refer categories are supported within the classroom environment under the guidance of our preschool coaching team. So the people I mentioned before, the PERS, the preschool instructional coach, our social worker, as well as Mrs. Floyd and the principals who are in charge of the direct programs in the school. Rescreening students are assessed again within 6 to 8 weeks. I wanted to provide this information because this is essential for understanding where our students are when they first join with us. So we know that if we have a student who is in that refer category or rescreen category, we are immediately working side by side with the classroom teacher, the instructional assistant, and all of this teamwork comes together to ensure that we are getting to meet the needs of the students right from the moment they begin with us. And that is an ongoing process. Many people are aware that the DOE actually forces us to select 3 different programs for our curriculum, actually. And that's actually a really positive thing. I know some people feel like, you're being dictated a program, but there are a few heavily researched programs out there, and so Creative Curriculum is one of them. I just want to highlight that throughout the course of a student's career in preschool, as a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, we are constantly assessing the categories under Creative Curriculum which are aligned with the state standards for preschool. So one of the things that we should be aware of is that Creative highlights several areas including social and emotional learning, physical development, language, cognitive literacy, mathematics, science and technology, social studies, the arts, as well as English language acquisition. So it's pretty comprehensive. A lot of data is being collected regularly from the point of the teacher, from the instructional assistant. That information informs the decisions in terms of everyday instruction in the classroom. I just want to also highlight for you now kindergarten. So we have had some families who have requested something related to kindergarten, whether it be that they would really like to move ahead a grade or they would like to stay in a grade. So the catalyst for that design of the new age entry policy is because of the fact that the policy was outdated and it was before we acquired full-day preschool in our district. Kindergarten, we now have a screening process that has been outlined several times, and we have selected the Battelle 3 as an early academic screener. We were in consult with our child study team to look for a designed research-based screening mechanism that we could use in order to understand where our students are going into their kindergarten years. The screening is an instrument that's by age, years and months. We also look for literacy and mathematics skills, and there are specific indicators including whether or not a student is on track, whether they need to be monitored, or they need to be supported. Kindergarten success is dependent on several things. One is multi-tiered systems of support. We have instructional coaches, MTSS instructional coaches. Their goal is to strengthen the classroom teaching in Tier 1 throughout every content area. And that's a new position that was created last year, and we were very grateful for that because it helps to strengthen our teaching in the classroom every day. We have learning acceleration specialists who work both flexibly and in identified areas for students who might be struggling. There's a building-based INRS team, intervention and referral services. So if a student is struggling in the kindergarten years, that team joins together to develop plans and to work with the team at each building and the classroom teacher to ensure a student's success. We obviously can retain a student in kindergarten. However, that would be based on continual work with building-based INRS teams, and it would be based on data and or whether a referral to CST would be recommended. We have developed a comprehensive screening process FAQ that will be on our district website. I would like to thank Mrs. Floyd for her tireless work and working alongside both myself, our coaches in the preschool team as well as our administrative assistants to not only create the process, but to make sure that it's executed. We are currently screening students. We are currently meeting with families to discuss those results and make our recommendations. Additionally, there are several documents that we will also post on the district website that may enhance understanding in terms of our goals and requirements for kindergarten and preschool, one of which is the Department of Education's kindergarten frequently asked questions for themselves. There's also a broadcast memo for guidance on early admission to kindergarten, which highlights the October 1st cutoff date. And then also just another highlight of the eligibility for enrollment for preschool and at the ages of both 3 and 4 years old. And that is the information.
Can you tell us a little bit about, first, I mean, I had a child that went through part of the pre-K process. I know a couple of us do. It's a wonderful program. It's very comprehensive. I'm so glad that we have the universal program so many of our kids can take advantage of it. For those that choose not to go to our pre-K program, can you talk to us about what that looks like when those kids are registering for kindergarten then?
Sure. So the first thing I think I want to mention is that as kindergarten teachers, I do think that we can probably argue that they have the most challenging jobs in our district. So when you enter into a kindergarten classroom, you never know what a child's previous experience might be. They may have gone to preschool, they may have been home with their family, they may have gone to a babysitter, they may have gone to a program that was largely academic, they may have gone to one that might have been largely based on other skills. And that is something that every kindergarten teacher expects. By having preschool in our district, it certainly helps to create alignment between preschool and kindergarten, and that is definitely a benefit for us. However, the amount of differentiation that occurs during the early years in kindergarten and the fact that our students enter with differing abilities is not something that our kindergarten teachers take lightly. It is the challenge of their job, it's the one that they signed up for, and they do it with amazing, intellectual ability, creativity, and just a sound understanding of developmentally appropriate practices. So despite the fact that a child may never have been in preschool before and entered into our kindergarten years, they are prepared for that. In the event that a parent at this point in time is questioning whether or not their child is ready for kindergarten, we are following the screening process right now. It has been well received. We have been attacking that equally, receiving information from families, screening with the Battelle, again, understanding what those results are, sharing with them with families, and noting our recommendations.
So just to be clear about what you just said about if the parent is concerned or not so sure that they feel that, or don't believe that their child is ready for, if we're talking about pre-K, they've gone through pre-K 3, pre-K 4, and they're not comfortable with their child moving to kindergarten, there's an appeal process that they can follow. And then it's also correct that if they have a child who has not been in our program yet, and they went to a local preschool and they're feeling like they're kindergarten age, but I'm not sure, or I guess they're kindergarten or first grade age and I'm not sure where they should be placed, or I'm not sure that I'm comfortable about where the age range tells us that they should be placed. There is a process that the parent or the family then goes through with the school district to determine what the appropriate placement is. It's not an automatic age placement only if the parent is concerned.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Is there, those of us that were in on the policy or curriculum committee meetings about this, did either Ms. McPartland or I miss any of the points that we had wanted to make sure that were communicated?
I think the only thing that I think you were trying to hit on, or not you were trying, sorry, I don't mean it that way. I think you were saying basically like, it's not just an automatic like age cutoff done. Like the age is the first indicator, and then if my child is 6, you're saying, okay, your kid's going to first grade, and I say, whoa, I don't think, my child's not ready for that, then I start the appeals process. That's how that works, correct?
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the frequently asked question document that you were just referencing will be on the website.
Yes, absolutely.
Tomorrow or soon. Okay.
Yes, we're working.
Great to to hopefully make that a little bit clearer for folks.
I just want to say that I've been doing and I have been involved in the kindergarten registration process actually since I started in this district. I've seen the way we have evolved over time. I have also seen the inequities. And so I am very confident that the work that we are doing collectively as part of the preschool team, as part of our kindergarten team, is the most equitable process to ensure that we are giving every student exactly what they need, and that we are doing that with a process that is followed. It's systematic, it's equal in its approach, and it serves to understand and meet the needs of every student who comes to our district.
Can I ask just one quick question? Based on just one thing you said, you had said if it comes up, repeat, rescreen.
Yes.
Then you said that there were additional supports given to that student?
In preschool, yes, that's correct.
I thought it was kindergarten that we were talking about.
No, rescreen that's for the easy in the preschool
Right,
setting.
okay, in preschool. And then how long does that process go before they're rescreened?
6 to 8 weeks.
Got it, that part of this. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Reagan, just a couple of questions on that. I guess I'll have to read the policy again. I don't recall seeing anything that said you can appeal the decision. It looked like it said October 1st is the date it shall be, and the states decided that that's the case. Maybe we want to rewrite the policy to indicate to parents that there is something in there that they can appeal if they don't agree?
We did
it's in
rewrite
the policy.
yes. And in the end, after a final decision is made, after all the screening has taken place, the information has been shared with families, the last formal appeal process. Beyond that, if the parent or family does not like the decision that is made, is an appeal to Dr. McDowell as the superintendent.
Be nice if something like that was in the policy so that the parents
is.
knew that.
Bill, it is in the policy.
Is it? I'll read it
Yep.
again.
Yes.
Second thing, you had touched on too, the students that don't go to Collingswood preschool, and there are some because you indicated that there's a waiting list for preschool. And we don't have the same background. You know, if they go to Collingswood preschool, you have 2 years experience with them and maybe you can do better. But the ones that don't, and that's probably 5% of the total maybe of what you have, you don't have any real basis for analysis other than the testing that's been done for years on kindergarten students. My oldest boy, we held back. His birthday is September 16th, and we held him back for a year. He turned out to be the best student in the group, probably because he takes after me more than he did his mother. But it was the best thing that could happen to him. I see no reasonable reason not to allow the parent the decision to hold back the youngster. They know the kid better than the state does, and read the state as the Collingswood Board of, or Collingswood School District. The state is saying, well, we know better. We've given them these tests. This is going to work. The parents have been with them for 5 years. They probably know the kid a little bit better. No matter how good our teachers are, they probably know them better than the kid does. So I'm still a little concerned about the reason for this. I don't know what we're trying to accomplish with this policy. Maybe the policy committee can tell me. I don't serve on that one. I'm sorry, but what are we trying to accomplish with this?
We certainly are not discrediting any of the information that our families are providing to us. That is actually part of this process. So along with the screening, we are asking for information from families to understand why they feel their child may not be ready for something or maybe extra ready for something else, because we have both. So we are taking in all of that information. Our screening process is comprehensive by design, taking information from previous teachers that someone might have had, from families, from early intervention services that might have been offered, as well as the screening. And for our students who are in our preschool program, we have 2 years of data to support whether or not a student is going to be, placed in one way or the other. So we have a comprehensive understanding of a student before they, as they go through this process from all angles. And again, that includes the family, so I do not want to discredit that. But we know that we are trying to create opportunities for students, and we also know that we are trying to make sure that what we are doing and the way that we are meeting the needs of students is equitable across the board.
Okay, Jen, you say we have a comprehensive understanding of the student. Okay, so does the parent.
Yes. And that's why that's part of the process.
I'm not sure why we need this policy. I don't think it does anything positive for the students.
Excuse me, thank you. So the point of every policy that we have is to systematize things, right? And so that is the point of the policy, is to have a system in place that is equitable. So age is one of the factors, as are all of the other things that Jen just took the time to outline for all of us. So it is a policy that allows for a comprehensive look at the student. Not just the parent, not just the teacher, not just the administrator. It includes everyone. That is the point of it. There has to be a system in place. That's just the way things work. And you are welcome to disagree with that, but that is, your question was, what was the goal of the policy? And the goal of the policy was to equitably create a system that was clear for everyone who lives in town and wants to send their children to school, what they need to do to register their child for school at a certain time.
Okay, well, I agree with most of what you're saying. Equity, I guess, is in the eye of the beholder.
Not correct, no.
Oh, the equity is set up by the school district of Collingswood.
Equity is in the eye of the beholder doesn't really make very much. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, we're saying, we're using all of these criteria to determine whether or not that child is ready for kindergarten or first grade, as the case might be. And, while we're saying that, we've done all the testing. We maybe have known the kid for a while. The parents have also known the kid. And
which is why their input and the input, for instance, so I'll tell a quick story. My oldest did not start school in Collingswood, started school in New York City, where the age cutoff is a year. So all kids born in 2008 went to kindergarten the same year. So he was 4 years old when he started school. There were kids whose birthday was December 31st of that same year. They started kindergarten when they were 4. We moved here. Cutoff date is October 1st, which his birthday is in October. So that would have said he starts kindergarten when we move here based on the age that he was. I collected report cards, notes from the teacher, all sorts of things, met with Ms. McPartland when I got down here, because I knew that the curriculum that we had and the curriculum that he had in Brooklyn were the same. And he did very well, and it wouldn't have made much sense for him to do the exact same thing all over again. So I was the opposite of some parents. I was asking for him to go to first grade, even though his age was not the correct thing. They met with him, they met with me, they took all of the information that I had brought with them, because they didn't know him, into consideration, and he went to first grade that year. So the system worked.
yes, it worked in that particular instance.
Well, and it worked in your particular instance too, but I'm just saying it's systematizing things, that's all.
Can I clarify something real quick, Ms. McPartland? And just so with basically 3 and 4, and even kindergarten, we don't really have a lot of wiggle room in terms of if a parent feels their child, like if their child goes through 3 and they say they're not ready for 4, we're not allowed to keep them back in 3. Right, that's my understanding.
Yes.
If a child goes into 4 and they say, well, they're not ready for kindergarten, we're not allowed to keep them in 4.
That's correct.
Their only move is to go to kindergarten.
Yes.
That's our only move.
Yes.
So really, I understand what you're saying, and I've been a first grade teacher for almost 20 years. I've seen it all, but I think, Bill, at the end of the day, this policy really, it kind of just so it systematizes something that basically is already there. 3, 4, and K, there's not much flexibility. We don't have it. We can't hold the kids back.
Yeah, in 3 and 4, I agree with you.
Kindergarten either, we can't, because kids who are in 4, they have to go on to kindergarten. We cannot hold them back.
Well, they will when we get done with this, yes, but
No,
that's
no,
not
no,
necessarily the
state will
case. They
not-
can be
the
out of
sta-
school for a year.
The state will not allow us.
The state requires that we go directly from pre-K, pre-K 4 to kindergarten. Why do we even have a policy then? There's no need to have it, state law.
Because for kids that don't go to our pre-K program, we need the policy for them.
Okay, we'll disagree, but okay.
Okay.
Can I
Any other
make-
questions?
can I make a statement that that the policy currently has the standard path, which is age-based,
Yes,
but families can and have appealed, correct?
that is correct.
And exceptions have been granted, correct?
That is correct.
For this policy, when all of the assessments are done, when the meetings with families have taken place, when discussions have happened. And it's, from my understanding, not there's no it's not an action that's without consequences. So what I mean by that is, I hear from a lot of families, hey, my child is bored in class. I wish there were so-and-so program that they could get a little bit more math instruction or a little bit more English instruction, right? And so one of the things that these assessments or these regulations are here to help is to make sure that, hey, your kid is in the age-appropriate or the developmentally appropriate placement for where they're at, right? And so if a child is developmentally ready for an older grade, it's not just a no consequence choice to put that child in a younger grade, considering what they're being given in each grade. The other thing too that I think is really interesting to me is that, we talk about the amazingness and expertise of the teachers and our staff at the school district. And in no other place would we say, go to doctor and say, I know my kids so well that I will not at all consider your expertise as a doctor about your assessment of the concerns that are being brought forth to you. And we spend a lot of time saying, hey, the staff here, the teachers here are amazing, are experts in their fields. And yet, we're not also willing to consider all of their work, all of their analysis alongside the families when making this choice. That to me is really a bizarre argument to make, to say, hey, in this case, whatever, it's whatever anyone wants. There's, and I think that's part of what leads to this idea that our teachers are not professionals, are not experts in what they do. And so when you were talking about the process of how we know or how we can come up with these recommendations of where the kids could be, I was struck by the professionalism and the structure built by the school district from the pre-kindergarten to the kindergarten area, and also the relationships that you and the transition team have with neighboring preschools and their teachers, so that y'all can have conversations with them also about the progress of kids who have been in those programs and not in our programs as they come into kindergarten. This is all to say that absolutely I think our policy should have a place for parents and families to bring up their concerns and to appeal and to go through that process. But I think we should also respect the expertise of the staff that we hold to such high esteem when it comes to these types of decisions. That's my piece. I'll leave it there.
I think we really appreciate that, and I want to reiterate that this is a data-informed decision, and I know that word data gets used very loosely sometimes, but this truly is a process. Again, the preschool expansion aid has a very specific design. If a student is with our program for 2 years as a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, they are not moving on to kindergarten without being ready. And if they are not ready, then they would have gone through a child study team process, or they absolutely would be entering into their kindergarten years with some sort of following plan to ensure that their needs are going to be met the moment they walk into school on their first day of school.
See, I'm not questioning the ability of the staff. I think they're very good. I honestly do. But nobody is infallible. And I'm more concerned that they make a mistake and the kid fails kindergarten. Is that going to do more damage to him than holding him out a year?
So the decision then would be to have fewer people weigh in on the decision?
No, you're not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the parents, I think, should have the final word. They can listen to everything that our experts say. They can view the reports. They can do all of that stuff. But when push comes to shove, I think the decision should be the parents.
Thank you again for presenting all this information and all the work. My oldest went through the program before the expansion, my youngest right after. So I was curious on the number of kids that we're serving now versus what it looked like before, because I think it's been a pretty significant upgrade in the number of kids we're just able to provide this. Because I mean, you look at the research, as I'm telling you, but just how much of an advantage this investment in early childhood education can have. So I was just wondering what. If you, not to put you on the spot for numbers, but just generally, how many more kids we're serving in the community?
So we did expand to add an additional classroom this year. We are expanding to add an additional classroom next year. So really exponentially every year. We are trying to find space. We can thank Keith and Beth Ann for that. We are working really hard to ensure that we can meet our universe number, and that is by design as well through funding. And we do have a short wait list this year. Again, things do change over the summer. People move and they make other decisions about what they'd like for their child's placement in youngest years. To date, we are essentially able to enroll almost all of the students who are with us. We also have a partnership with Head Start with 30 seats that are available, and we hope that our Head Start program will continue to be out there recruiting students for their program because that funding is available, and we certainly appreciate that partnership because it does allow us to expand even further.
Any other questions for Ms. McPartlin before we let her sit down?
No, I just want to say thanks to Mary because I know she's put a whole lot of time and energy and thought into revising this policy and making trying to make sense of it for everybody, and I think that's appreciated.
Thank you very much for taking the time to go over all of that with us. The other thing that the other topic that we wanted to be sure that we discuss is an update from our Safe Schools Partnership Ad Hoc Committee, which is currently working with Kevin Carey on a job description for the school liaison officer. I don't want to be the only one talking because I'm not the only one on the ad hoc committee, but just wanted to, I know that there are concerns in the community about what this position will look like, and we understand that. We've heard from parents and we've heard from students who have come and spoken at various meetings about the concerns about what a police officer on our campuses would look like, and wanted to assure you that we are working diligently to try to be very intentional about our language in the job description, that this position is an administrative facing position and not a student facing position, that any interactions with students are only those that would happen if, according to the MOA, police had to be called, to the school campus as it is, and we are kind of looking at this that, for better or for worse at the moment, the police are being called to particularly our middle school and high school campus more than I think any of us would want them to be, and the advantage to having a dedicated liaison officer that works exclusively with Collingswood schools is that that person receives specific training on juveniles, on diversionary programs for juveniles, and it has been made clear that would not be the case if any police officer was called to our schools the way it is now, and that this position would be a way to ensure that when a student has to come into contact with law enforcement, it is with a person that is highly trained in dealing with juveniles. So that is what we are working with Chief Carey on at the moment. I don't know if anyone else on the committee has anything else that would be useful to share at this time. I have something that we were discussing as well. We want to make sure to have a couple of things in place for the fall when this would start. A document on the website and that would go out to families about kind of understanding what this role would be, understanding within the job description certain terms or what student rights would be. We would like to make sure that that is very clear, and then also coordinating some kind of facilitation with students and families that is not just a document, but that is a discussion about what this will look like in the schools. When, for families, assuming that a concern would be, is my child just going to be talked to by the police without my knowledge? The answer is no, but being more specific about like what that looks like, what students' rights are, what families' rights are, and just kind of an overall picture of what this person would be doing during the day. And then we have also, as a board, been talking with Dr. McDowell and Chief Carey about the accountability measures, the reporting about what this person would be doing during the day, and what incidents they are being called for and why, and so that can be something that can be much more informative for not just for us but also for the schools to understand kind of what's going on and what needs to be where resources need to be focused to try to have those sorts of issues not coming up quite as much as they might be. Anything else? Anyone? Help me out here.
Actually, you really covered everything. I know the one other thing that we were talking about would be while we're making sure to educate the public and have documentation available about what this job will entail. I know we had also talked about educating the community about the memorandum of agreement. I know that that's something that I really didn't know much about before running for the board, and just so everybody is clear about what we are legally obligated, as you said, Reagan, to report in collaboration with local law enforcement and the district attorney as well. So I think it would be good for everybody to maybe know a little bit about that too, that this is also going to be a collaboration in order to facilitate keeping up with that memorandum of agreement.
I think another thing we talked about, and you kind of hit on this, is just ways to make sure that the community has an apparatus or a channel to report concerns, to add a layer of accountability, a layer of oversight to the process that doesn't come from the board but comes from people in the schools. That could be students, that could be families, could be teachers, that would go and have a direct line to those who are looking over what this SLO is doing.
All right, I think that, unless there was anything else, I think that covered everything for those two topics. The main goal of the officer would be working with the administration to really have a kind of a deeper understanding of both what the needs outside of the school are, because we did hear a lot of concerns about that, and how this person could help to take over some of those issues that are not school related, that are taking up some of our administrators' time, as well as having a better understanding of of the MOA and when it's important to call and when it's a school issue instead, and that kind of stuff. All right, so thank you everyone for the discussion about both of those topics. And with that, I need a motion to exit committee of the whole. And a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Section 5, future dates and miscellaneous. There are quite a lot of them because it is May and June, and we're getting into all of the end of year activities, so please take note of all of the various award ceremonies, promotion ceremonies, and the like. Graduation will be on June 20th, the high school graduation, and then our next board meeting is the 26th. Next is our annual appointments, and Ms. Coleman is going to go over those for us, section 6.
All right, and just so everybody knows, the board meeting will be here, the June board meeting. We're going to finish out the board meetings here in the high school. All right, so bear with me. This is a long section, but I will speak as quickly and coherently as I possibly can. Item 6.01 is approving Garrison Architects as the district's architect of record. 6.02 is approving myself as the secretary of the board. It's approving Inverso and Stewart as the auditor, Dr. Lambert as our medical doctor, and Capert and Scatcherd as our solicitor. 6.03 is appointing Connor Strong as our broker of record for our health insurance plans. 6.04 is appointing Hardenberg Insurance Company as the insurance broker for the non-health coverage that the district has. 6.05 is designating First Colonial Community Bank as our depository. 6.06 is approving the retrospect in the Courier Post as the official newspapers. 6.07 is the listing of all the checking accounts that we maintain and who are the signatories on them. 6.08 is approving me as the qualified purchasing agent and setting the bid threshold for purchases at $44,000. 6.09 is just authorizing me when money is allowed to purchase CDs and banknotes for investment purposes. 6.10 is authorizing me to transfer wire funds by phone or internet, and that's mostly for payroll and pension purposes. 6.11 is authorizing me to basically handle the affairs of the business office and pay invoices in between board meeting dates, if that's the case, and then I bring them to you to ratify. 6.12 is establishing the petty cash fund of $250, and at the end of each school year, it is redeposited back into the district warrant account. 6.13 is approving me as the custodian of records for the 23-24 school year. 6.14 is approving Keith Higginbotham, our supervisor of buildings and grounds, as a school district's asbestos management officer, safety and health designee, integrated pest management coordinator, chemical hygiene officer, and asbestos hazardous emergency response act coordinator. 6.15 is approving me as the public agency compliance officer. 6.16 is appointing myself and Keith Higginbotham as the right to know coordinators for POSHA. 6.17 is approving Windsor Yamamoto as the compliance action officer for affirmative action. 6.18 is approving Dr. Whitehouse as the compliance action officer for our 504 plans. 6.19 is approving the Omni Group as our third-party administrator for our district's tax shelter or 403B plan. 6.20 is approving Maria Tessing as our homeless liaison. 6.21 is approving myself as the issuing officer for working papers. 6.22 is approving Windsor Yamamoto, the Title IX coordinator. 6.23 is approving the school safety and security plan, and that includes our emergency operations plan, our crisis prevention and response procedures, and the emergency management plan. 6.24 is approving Joe Gersick as the school district safety specialist. 6.25 is approving Dr. Whitehouse as the Americans with Disability Act officer. 6.26 is just our annual certification that we approve and collect and maintain student records in accordance with New Jersey Administrative Code. 6.27 is just a note that usually we would be approving the district curriculum. At this meeting, we will be approving it in August because I believe there's some curriculum writing that is ongoing and it should be completed by then. 6.28 is approving the special ed programs as listed for the 23-24 school year. 6.29 is approval of the Twilight Alternative Program. 6.30 is approving the Charlotte Danielson Framework of Educator Practice Rubrics. 6.31 is approving our annual enrollment in the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association. 6.32 is our annual adoption of all of our policies and bylaws that are listed on our website. 6.33 is setting our substitute pay rates for the school district for the next school year. And it's an increase across the board. 6.34 is setting the rates for the athletic event workers. And with that, items 6.01 through 6.34.
A motion to approve said items.
So moved.
And a second? Questions or comments from board members? Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Severino?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia?
Yes.
Mr. Stotts?
Yes.
Mr. Dilkus?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaden?
Yes. Section 7 is our first opportunity for public comment. The purpose for this public comment section is to discuss items listed on the agenda. Additional, more general comments may be made later in the meeting. The public is reminded that attempts to resolve all concerns and complaints should first go through appropriate staff members and administrators. Thank you, Keith. The intent of public comment is to give the community opportunity to provide feedback to the board. We will be actively listening and taking notes so that we can take all that is being said into consideration. If appropriate, clarifying comments may be made at the end of the public comment section. For more detailed responses to concerns, communications may go out later in the week by the appropriate staff members or administrators, or be discussed by the board during future committee meetings. Members of the public are welcome to speak and expected to do so with the utmost sensitivity for everyone in attendance. In fairness to all who wish to speak, there is a strict 5-minute time limit per person during public comment. Mr. Craig will give you a 30-second warning. Please remember to state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Lisa Steinhauer, Park Avenue. I want to first thank you for all of the information provided tonight on the entrance age policy and continuing to focus on that. But again, I wonder why we're continuing to hold up a burdensome process. I am one of those families going through the process currently, and I can attest to the significant amount of time that it is taking. At last month's meeting, there was some concerning information shared, concerning because it was misleading and disregarded all of the parents who have stood up to share their stories. Following the April board meeting, a group of us sent the board an email to address this concerning information. Since the follow-up email was not acknowledged, I want to take some time tonight to publicly address these concerns. First, the board's response to removing all language discouraging education outside of the Collingswood School District was that the state has very strict guidelines regarding ages of kids in the pre-K program, so the board would not be able to honor anything that falls outside of those parameters. Again, this was reiterated tonight. This statement is misleading. I followed up with the New Jersey Department of Education to better understand these strict guidelines, and while we agree the preschool program has requirements that are tied to the funding, the board is choosing to set a stricter than necessary policy for entrance age from kindergarten to 12th grade. Here's what we know to be true. The local Board of Education sets the entrance age policy and therefore defines the eligible age for the preschool program. The state provides a standard of October 1st, and Collingswood uses that date. We are not asking for the date of October 1st to change, but for less burden to be put on families who have children with birthdays close to that cutoff date. The state does provide parameters around how to use the preschool education aid, which includes a 2-year limit for student participation in preschool and discouraging districts to allow kindergarten age eligible students, as defined by the local school board, a slot over a preschool age eligible student. However, no one is advocating for a 3rd-year preschool or delayed entrance into the preschool program. Per New Jersey Administrative Code, preschool and kindergarten are not required grades in New Jersey, and the compulsory school age is 6 to 16. Outside of the requirements attached to the preschool program funding, there are no state laws or requirements forcing the board to strictly place students in a grade level based age. To be extremely clear, our issue and what needs to be removed from the policy is the following statement. Please note, a family who has been part of the Collingswood School District preschool program or an outside privatized program should be aware that holding a student back for a subsequent year in preschool or kindergarten outside of our school district does not influence placement in a grade level of a choice by a parent. It is no cost to the Collingswood School District to allow parents a choice of privatized preschool education if the optional schooling provided through the Collingswood preschool program does not match the student or family's needs. Instead of choosing to provide flexibility and choice to local families and students, the board is being unnecessarily restrictive and blaming New Jersey legislation for an issue that can be directly addressed with a policy revision. The second thing that I'd like to address is one of the most concerning things said at the school board was because at the end of the day, somebody does always need to be the youngest in the class. No parent is standing up here advocating to delay kindergarten entry for a child. No parent standing up here and advocating to delay kindergarten entry for their child is putting in this level of effort to avoid being the youngest in the class. Parents are standing up because they are already seeing their child struggling to be developmentally ready to succeed at the grade level their birthday places them in. We do not have access to previous year's records as the board does, but anecdotally, the vast majority of summer birthday kids abide by the calendar guidelines and are in fact the young ones. Many of those students do perfectly well, and we are happy for them. But just because the majority can overcome their younger age doesn't mean they all can, and it is those children we are trying to advocate for. It is concerning that the board can listen to so many first-hand stories of children having negative developmental experiences with education and still show no flexibility or willingness to compromise. Further, in a recent email with 2 of the board members, as the policy was explained with this statement. As an example, a family that feels their 5-year-old child is not ready for kindergarten is welcome to take the child out of the district and enroll them in a private program. However, if at age 6 that child returns to the district and the family wants to enroll them in kindergarten, the family will have to go through the appeal process to determine whether placement in kindergarten or first grade is best for the family. I cannot follow that logic. Why would first grade even be a consideration for a student who delayed kindergarten through enrollment in a private preschool or TK program when they return to the district? Why is that an option? I want to take a second to thank Mr. Stotts for recognizing the importance of parents through this process. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniela Solano Ward. I'm on West Franklin Ave. The message that is sent, the message that's being received is that age rules all. Whether that was, maybe we need to work on messaging because that's what parents are understanding. And that's why my daughter never went to pre-K in Collingswood, because I was terrified 2 years ago that they would force her to go into a grade that she wasn't ready for. So we nipped it in the bud, we went private for 2 years, and here we are trying to make sure she goes into kindergarten, not first grade, because pre-K doesn't get you ready for first grade. There is clearly a lack of transparency about the application process, and specifically the exemption process or the appeal exemption process. You all are working to add more information about it. Thank you for all for everything that we heard tonight. More things are going up on the website, and you know, when we look back at this, maybe it'll all be clear. But we're learning right now. Like, we're learning new information every day, and we're in it. Like, we find out in the next 5 days whether I have to start figuring out if my kid needs to go to a private kindergarten somewhere. Hope I can still find her a spot. We'll see. The point is that you reassure dozens of families that this exemption process works. And if that's the case, if it does work, if everybody's happy with it, I think it would be immeasurably helpful to show numbers, to show how many students applied for the exemption process, how many were granted the process, what did they provide? Did they provide doctor's notes, teacher's notes? On top of the Patel, I've already spoken with somebody who's heard their decision, and there seems to be there's no way to measure socio and psychological, everything is academic. The Patel is academic. So if it's not an academic concern, if my kid can read, if she knows her numbers, but that wasn't the reason. The reason is because she was getting bullied at 3 and 4 by like everybody. So like clearly she needed to bulk up a little bit emotionally. How is that being measured? How is that getting taken in? If parents know that going in, and they can trust that process, and we can do a better job of showing them that this exemption process will take all that into consideration, I think you'll have less people standing behind me next year. And that's something that we would like to continue working with. And if there's any parents watching from home that are going through this process, if this exemption doesn't go your way, please reach out to us, because we're going to continue to advocate for you regardless of what happens with our own children. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
My name is Melissa Helwig. I live on East Browning Road. I'm here again to speak about Policy 5112, entrance age for kindergarten. I spoke previously about my own experience both as a parent of a child with a September birthday as well as a teacher. The board has made it clear to us that this policy will not change in order to allow for parent choice in delaying kindergarten for their child. While I still hold hope that this will change in time, I want to stress the importance of everything Daniela just said about transparency with the appeals process. I am not currently going through this appeals process as my son will be 3 in September, but that does not mean I'm not already thinking about it. My experience as a teacher led me to make a decision to delay kindergarten as soon as I got my due date. He's 9 days before the cutoff. My son's early life experience has further compelled me to ensure that this happens, as he spent the last year in early intervention services for speech delays. I proactively did not enroll him in the preschool lottery this year, as I know he is not ready for 5 full days of school. He would still be 2 upon his entrance, and developmentally it makes sense that he would not be ready. A few months is a long time in a young child's life, and so much changes, growth happens in that time, and it's important to me that my son be given that time in order to have a more positive school experience right from the start. My husband and I are willing to put him in private pre-K instead of the district program in order to do this for him. We are not asking for an extra year of preschool as it's been suggested, so I just want to reiterate that. So right now I'm anxious about all of this. I'm already wondering what kind of data will I need to present to the district in order to be granted an appeal? Will it be enough? And what do I do if it isn't enough? Will it be completely based on academics, or will social emotional concerns be considered as well? It's great, the pre-K program, I can advocate for it. I taught kindergarten with creative curriculum. It's amazing, and it measures kids as a whole child. I do love that. But if you decided to put your kid in private preschool because you already knew they wouldn't be ready for kindergarten, that data is not going to be available for someone like my son. It would be mostly based on me and maybe a teacher that he has in private preschool. So I appreciate the things said earlier about that, but there's still some issues. In speaking with other families, it is clear that I am not the only one stressing over this. No one is sure what it takes to get this appeal. It is an additional and unnecessary barrier for parents who are only trying to do what's best for their child. We all love our kids. We are all telling you that we love this district, and we do not want to feel pushed out. We are trying to consider our child, the teachers, the other kids who will be placed in a class with our child, in order to create the best possible situation for everyone. If the board refuses to be more flexible about students with late birthdays, trusting in their parents' decision, as many of the other districts in the area already do, then they at least need to be open about what the appeals process entails and what is needed as documentation to receive the appeal we are seeking. We appreciate the listening session about the appeals process that is offered to us for this Wednesday. We will be speaking to the changes that we feel need to be made then, but I do want to speak a little to it now. I sincerely hope that the social emotional concerns are being considered. We don't want to be told that our child will catch up eventually, even if the support of the staff and teachers is phenomenal, which it is. We want them to start school confident and ready to learn, not falling behind from the start because they just needed a little more time. Academics are not everything. They are a small piece of the puzzle. A child can be smart and still unable to learn the way they are expected in the classroom because developmentally they have not reached the point of having the attention skills or the ability to regulate their own emotions. So we need to consider the whole child. I hope the whole child is being considered in these decisions, and I echo Daniela's hope that the board will share information regarding the appeals process with us. It would be extremely helpful for parents to know exactly how to ensure their child is getting the correct placement. It takes time to gather documentation, doctor's letters, diagnoses, anything. If we know ahead of time just how much the district is looking for, we can prepare. I am hopeful that we all have the same goals in mind, which is to give our children the best opportunities to learn, to feel comfortable in the classroom, and to feel confident in their amazing selves. Some change is necessary for us to reach that goal, and I look forward to further discussions about how we can make this goal a reality. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katie Keener, and I live on Park Avenue. This is my third time addressing you, the board, regarding the prospect of my son beginning kindergarten. No one knows my son better than myself and my husband. I am not speaking only as his mom, but as a speech-language pathologist. I do not feel he is ready for kindergarten based on my vast knowledge of his life experiences of being a preemie with sensory struggles, but also from my experiences working with students from preschool to high school for 10 years. My husband and I are the ones setting up obstacle courses in my house in the morning to prepare him for the day. We sent in a sensory diet information at the beginning of the last year. Thankfully, he was blessed with a very understanding, amazing teacher, and the team of professionals at his school have been incredibly supportive during his preschool journey. Alan Trotty especially has given my son amazing tools to cope with his struggles both in life and in school, and deserves a raise in my opinion. Difficult circumstances of Logan's life, completely out of his control, are part of this decision for us. Being repeatedly attacked by a classmate dominated his school year, the death of 2 family members, being the sibling of a child with special needs. We want to give him extra time to grow and mature, to be more equipped to work through all of this and also be the best student he can be. He is more than scores on a piece of paper. I feel he needs more time, not to be pushed into kindergarten with the suggestion of becoming classified with an IEP, which could be completely unnecessary, and totally avoidable. You can understand our concern when I have been told by more than one parent that they have appealed and went through the process in the past several years and have been denied. I would also like to point out my husband and I are not asking for anything monetarily or any additional time in the preschool. This rule feels detrimental to my son and the countless other children whose parents are longing to give them the gift of time. Because what happens if our request is denied? I live a block and a half away from Haddon Township, a town which would support my decision to give my son this precious time to grow. We don't want to leave this town we have come to love and the house we have made a home. But if you as a school board don't support this seemingly simple request, what other situations will we not be supported in? You as our school board members are elected to represent the concerns of the citizens, the parents, the taxpayers, and represent the needs of our students. Hear us. These are our needs, and we are concerned. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rich Helwig. I live on East Browning Road. I'm here in support of the petition to change policy 5112 regarding the entrance age. First, I want to thank everyone who has been active in raising awareness about this subject. And thank you for the continued work advocating for modifying the existing policy. Also, thank you to the board for listening to concerns and working to find a solution for the many families who are or would be negatively impacted by the current policy. The current policy places burdensome requirements on families who simply wish to make the best choice for their children. It requires my child to begin kindergarten at age 4. He will attain age 5 just 10 days prior to the established cutoff date. If he were born just 2 weeks later, he would not even be eligible to enroll in kindergarten at that time. Due to developmental delays, he has been receiving early intervention services. For my family, we know the best choice for him and his development is to enroll him in kindergarten a year later when he's actually age 5 to start the school year. In neighboring districts, this is an option available to families without requiring them to jump through hoops or fear that their decision will be rejected. We are simply asking for additional time. We are not asking for any other considerations. We do not want any additional years of pre-K. Having the ability to make this choice does not impact district resources or finances in any way. The New Jersey Department of Education does not provide any recommendations or guidelines regarding kindergarten entrance for a child who already attains age 5 prior to October 1st. All recommendations are specific to the minimum age a child should attain to enroll in kindergarten. For example, the student must be 5 years old by October 1st in order to have a right to enrollment when a kindergarten program is offered by a school. I reiterate that if my child were born 2 weeks later, he would not even be eligible for enrollment in kindergarten when turning age 5. Though we are certain delaying enrollment will benefit our child, the current policy requires us to follow an onerous process that results in an uncertain outcome for our child. The process outlined in the policy is opaque and appears intended to discourage families from pursuing it. If we choose to enroll our child once he has already turned 5, follow the appeal process as outlined, and our appeal is rejected, my child will be placed in grade 1 at age 5 without ever having attended kindergarten. If the board is not willing to amend the policy, there must be greater transparency about the appeal process, including exact information regarding steps, timeframes, criteria being considered, and who ultimately makes the decision. They should also make available data, including number of appeal requests and percentage which are granted or rejected. Again, I want to thank all of those working hard to advocate for this change, as well as the many families who have shared their stories of how the current policy impacts them and why it must change. Thank you.
Hey, I am Brenda Borkowski. I live on Harvard Avenue here in Collingswood, and I am mom to 2 young black men who attend Collingswood Public Schools. One is in preschool at Sharp and one in 4th grade at Tatum. Members of the board, I am here tonight to plead with you to reconsider your recent vote to approve the employment of a school liaison officer in our school district. I was shocked and really truly disappointed by this decision, and I would like to take this opportunity to argue why police officers have no place in our schools. It is my belief that adding a police presence to schools is in fact a racist act. Police officers are professionally trained to apprehend criminals, and history has shown us time and again that people of color, and especially innocent black men like my sons, are more likely to be viewed as criminals by the police. It is my fear that the black and brown students of Collingswood schools will be viewed by this SLO as potential criminals to be apprehended. Even when non-serious and age-typical behaviors are being displayed, they'll be mistaken as threats to public safety. As a local dad, a Tatum dad, Dr. Nate Link, who is a criminologist at Rutgers, has published in New Jersey Penn, scientific evidence shows that school police are not effective in reducing violence. Instead, the research shows that police cause more kids to get caught up in the criminal justice system. When black students have contact with the criminal justice system, it contributes to the school-to-prison pipeline that I'm sure everyone on this board is familiar with as a concept in our country, that perpetuates 400 years of racial inequity in our nation. And I can't stand by quietly and watch Collingswood be a part of this broken system, not when the lives of my black sons and the other black boys in our school district are at risk. There are many, many more arguments to be made against a police presence in schools, which I will not expound upon here, the two most notable being that research shows that more student fatalities occur in school shootings when there's police present at the school shootings, and the other being that students with disabilities are at increased risk of police maltreatment when police are in schools. Instead, I wish to focus upon the danger that a police presence creates for students of color, and ask that this danger either be removed entirely from Collingswood schools, or at the very least restricted as much as possible in order to mitigate the potential harm to students. First, I believe that this officer should be physically located off of campus. It is possible to serve as a liaison to the school district without physically being inside the schools. Second, I believe that this officer should be unarmed if and when that person is on campus. There is simply no reason to have a gun on school grounds. It's unsafe, it's irresponsible, and it's counterproductive. Lastly, I believe the position of school liaison officer should have a non-police on-campus counterpart who is a social worker or other person specially trained as a professional not to apprehend criminals. A person who is not a graduate of a police academy. A person who is not trained to find and apprehend bad guys. I want that other person to be responsible for interaction with students who become police involved. I'd point the members of the board to a particular model called the Child Advocacy Center model, wherein police are not permitted to directly interview and interact with children, but only to review those interviews as evidence. This particular model has been proven to greatly reduce the trauma of direct police interaction with children. It's an excellent example of a successful non-police response. My thanks to the members of the board for considering my comments.
Good evening, Wayne Rossi, 114 East Palmer Ave. I'm also here to talk about the school liaison officer. I've thought about this a lot, and I realize, the comments that I've heard so far are in line with what I think are generally the board's good intentions, but I feel that the idea of a school liaison officer is the proverbial, you're giving someone a hammer and everything does tend to look like a nail. I do feel like the challenges that this is intended to address are going to be become police involved things, because that's what that person does. And I actually agree with what Brenda had just said, where I believe that we need at least some element that's non-police as a significant part of this process if we're having administrators who want to bring in the police, who want to involve questions of whether things are police appropriate, because I think we need someone who would be an advocate for primarily non-police, non-carceral solutions to disciplinary issues in the schools. And I really have the worry that, like I said, that this is going to be that giving someone a hammer. And even though I think that the person will be a well-intentioned person and I think they will be given a lot of training, I do think that everything, especially to the kind of person who's gone through law enforcement, that there is a tendency that things start to look like nails. And I don't want the students to be the nails. In short on that. The other question I'd have on this, and it's something that Clinton Connor had brought up, was the question of why this why this school district, which is strapped for cash and in a budget crisis, needs to be the one to pay for this. Whether there is any actual obligation of the borough to pay for this instead of the school to pay for this. Because I think that money, I would rather see it go to an administrator who, like I said, was primarily focused on the non-intervention side of discipline. And I do share a lot of the concerns about racial justice, and I do think that this board, as I said, I think this board means well, and I think this board is trying to make good steps in racial justice, and I don't want this to be a step backward. So I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Hello, my name is Lori Kerfrin, and I live on Center Street. I usually come up here and just talk, but I'm very nervous, so I wrote it, so excuse me if I don't make eye contact. I came to this meeting tonight knowing that what I'm going to say will likely not, sorry, I'm emotional about this stuff, change the future course of action of this board. But I think it's really important to stand up here and speak to you. After listening to the last two board meetings, I'm left with many questions regarding the agreement made between the board and the police department that will have the school district paying $65,000 toward hiring a school liaison officer. A position which currently has no set job description, but is said to be to establish a direct police officer who would interface with administration and have specialized training in juvenile law. I find it hard to understand why there is no one in place on the police department currently who has this training, since the department interfaces with all members of the community on a daily basis. How do the officers on the force currently proceed in interactions with youth in this town, in the apartments, in any situation in which a minor is involved? It would seem that knowing how to talk to youth and what is legal and illegal should be basic knowledge of the job for all officers. Furthermore, there is already an MOA that lays out the interactions that the police department should have with the schools requiring this type of role that goes back to 2016. It is 2023. What has been done for the last 7 years? Why isn't the staff on the police force being properly trained in this area, and why is it the responsibility of the school district to pay for an additional officer now? At the last meeting, there was a budget approved that seemed to cause legitimate pain for the staff, especially the high school. The union spoke, and teachers who live in town spoke about the pain of teaching in a district that would be losing so many positions. I found the statements moving and heartfelt. I believe the overall response was that in a budget crisis, tough calls need to be made. So why is the district, in a budget crisis, making an agreement to pay $65,000 during the next school year to fund a non-school position? Surely $65,000 could hire an additional teacher, social worker, or staff member, even perhaps 2 support staff. How can the board in good conscience shift these funds away from that aim? Tonight, you celebrated the staff of the year, and they deserve all of that praise. They work hard and are amazing. And I'm sure this acknowledgement, just like gift cards or a luncheon, is appreciated by our staff of the year and the other staff. But I can't help thinking that what would tell the staff we appreciate them most would be to give them colleagues they need to keep their heads above the water every day. I personally work at the district preschool here in Collingswood, and I can tell you there is a big difference between a fully staffed and a short-staffed day. Ongoingly, that level of pressure is unsustainable for both teachers and students. I'm concerned about the overall aims of this position. The National Education Association states on their website that addressing the over-reliance on police and public schools is crucial to dismantling the systemic racism, that deprives Black and brown youth of the opportunity to succeed at the very first stages of their lives. and that research finds that police officers in schools do not make schools safer and lead to harsher discipline for minor infractions. I'm also concerned that the officer will be carrying a gun into the schools. A gun is not a weapon for de-escalation. In what way does this position differ from any other officer arriving to a call with a weapon? And how does the board paying their salary in any way improve the interactions? How does the board intend to place careful guardrails on this position? And how does it expect to have any control or accountability? As I understand, this officer would be hired and trained and supervised by the police chief. A desk in an administrative building does not change the role of a police officer. A cop is a cop. We know that it is well established that police interactions with students will often fall heavier on Black and brown and LGBTQIA+ students who are already at a disadvantage when it comes to educational justice and outcomes. Many of you know this and have done work around these outcomes. The agreement that was passed says it has 90 days to be canceled, and I would like to urge the board to reconsider its vote to cancel the agreement, use the funds to hire more in-school staff, and ask the police department to uphold its duty to all citizens by training its own staff on these matters with funds it already receives from the borough in order to make the interactions with youth safer for all. Our schools need more school staff, our students need more allies, and our board should be a place that upholds these aims. I hope you will consider these questions. I hope that you will reconsider this agreement. The agreement is a step in the wrong direction, not only morally, but also fiscally. And for families watching from home, please know there is a student rights pamphlet on the ACLU NJ website. Please share it with your kids, and you can contact me if you have trouble finding it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Leah Foreman, and I live on South Vineyard Boulevard in Collingswood. I'm here tonight because I have concerns about the SLO position. I know this position is different from an SRO, but with no discernible job description and the fact that this person will carry a firearm, it's hard to see the difference. This person will still be law enforcement. The law does not offer any flexibility to our kids at a time when they really need it, especially in the high school. The National Education Association reports that the police presence in schools does not make schools safer, creates a hostile learning environment that is not conducive to learning, damages the school climate, and causes harm to students of color and those with disabilities. It's a known fact that police presence does not deter violence. I ask the board, why would we knowingly go against the recommendation of the NEA and continue with this decision? I've heard that a lot of teachers and administrators are begging to have this position. Which teachers and administrators are asking for this and why? Are they teachers that are struggling to manage classrooms? Admin that are already causing harm to students of color? I have not heard any good justification for this position other than it's a want. We are currently in a budget crisis. Why are we choosing to spend our already thin budget on this, especially when everything outlined in the current service agreement is already something the police department is responsible for providing? Why should the school have to pay for the police to have an expert in juvenile law? Why is it not the police department's responsibility to meet the needs of our community, and why does this money need to come from the school's budget? Would it not make more sense for the police department to have multiple officers trained and provide support as needed? Simultaneously, the school can be finding ways to limit the need to call the police. There's nothing compelling in the current service agreement that justifies this expense, and there is no job description. If this has been something the police department and the school have wanted for a long time, a job description should be the first thing presented. It's inexcusable that we're supposed to pay for something and have no idea what the scope of work will be. I've heard the board say we're supposed to trust the people doing the work. As the parent of Black children, I have no faith in a system that has never supported my children. If you cannot bring a job description or a more thought out service agreement, this is a waste of money for a position that is proven dangerous for Black students. We are not learning from our history. We are not learning from the mistakes of other school districts. And the people who are going to pay for this are Black, brown, and disabled students. I urge you to terminate the service agreement between the Collingswood PD and the Collingswood School District. Thank you.
Sarah Mello, Lawnside Avenue. It's just as scary to be on this side of the table. I've worked alongside of many of you, so you already know how I feel about this position, and the parents that have spoken before me have been far more articulate than I feel I can be. So I just want to share with you the names of organizations that are advising against more police force in schools. And that would be, as some of the parents have mentioned, the U.S. Department of Education, the National Education Association, the American Federation of Teachers, the Brookings Institute, GLSEN, the Center for Healthy Schools and Communities, the Urban Institute, the NAACP, the ACLU, Lawyers for Good Government, the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, the American Bar Association, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the ACLU of Washington, the Healthy Schools Campaign, and the Citizens for Juvenile Justice, to name a few. One of our parents who could not be here this evening has prepared this information for you with links to the studies, and if I can give it to Ms. Coleman, I will. I don't understand why we wouldn't be considering the advice of these organizations that are charged with guiding quality education for all students. And you'll excuse my note on the top, but I don't believe administrative position needs a gun.
My name's Pam Gessert. I'm from Crestmont Terrace. I'm not a preschool parent or an SLO parent, but my kids have been in Collingswood schools for 12 years. I've had an extremely overwhelming positive experience. It's very nerve-wracking talking to you guys or being up here. And I feel bad on one hand being up here and wanting to voice being critical of what's gone on with my daughter, because I feel incredibly supportive of the school district. But my daughter, I feel, has had a grave disservice in the last several weeks at the high school. There's a HIB. She was a target of a HIB that's mentioned for this month's board meeting, where during cafeteria she was pushed out of her chair, slapped, hit on her head several times, told she was going to be punched, and then was also with her lunchbox. Her counselor saw her crying, took her to the counseling office, where later she had a class with a student the next period. That student left the class to go talk to the counselor, when really she went to the counseling office to confront my daughter. And when the counseling office found out what was going on, they took her right out. The next day, my daughter didn't want to go to the cafeteria because that student would be there. That student left the cafeteria that day to go to the counseling office to see my daughter because she knew my daughter was there. Mrs. Smith promptly took her out. I spoke with Mr. Whalen. He was very supportive. I asked to file a HIB. The student and a student who witnessed it confirmed it the next day. And then there was a follow-up meeting with my daughter and the student later that week, during which time, when my daughter came home from school today and said, "Mom, they didn't take it seriously. The girl was on her phone throughout the entire meeting." I work at a school. I do these meetings all the time. Like, no way. You sure she wasn't just holding it? She was nervous. Like, maybe, I'm sure you were wrong. I spoke to Mr. Whalen. That was on a Friday. I spoke with Mr. Whalen that Monday, where he found out that day in a follow-up meeting with my daughter, was very apologetic, which I really appreciated. And then I sent an email. I was extremely disturbed because that meeting actually made it worse for my daughter, because to have a meeting where you're supposed to make it right, and that student is allowed to be on the phone throughout the entire meeting, sends a very clear message: you don't matter. And it doesn't help the student that did it either, because during any meeting, no one would be allowed to be on their phone during a meeting at a work setting. But it sends a message to the girl that was involved in, that was the aggressive: what you do doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want to this girl, it doesn't matter. I then still, even after talking with Mr. Whalen, felt frustrated and felt like I needed to speak up on my daughter's behalf. I sent an email to the HIB specialist and the other staff member who was involved in the meeting. I never got an acknowledgement email back from the HIB specialist. I haven't gotten anything that there was a HIB or anything. And Mr. Whalen told me it was confirmed, so I know, and I guess I don't hear from it. I don't get documentation until it's put forth to you guys. But as a parent, it's extremely alienating to not get anything official from the school in that matter. So I said I wanted to direct it directly to the staff involved, just saying, this made it worse for my daughter. No acknowledgement from the HIB specialist to this day. The other staff member called me. She was very apologetic, but frankly, it doesn't take it away. It doesn't make my daughter feel safer. She'd been threatened by 2 other students this year. The counseling office and administration were very responsive in those cases. This student didn't even lose lunch privileges. And I know they can't tell me what the consequences were. But I know my daughter was still exposed to this student, or went to the counseling office so as to not be around this student. Since that time, my daughter's now like terrified to go to school. I don't blame her. I can't say, you gotta go. So now my student is later enlisted in the agenda as a home instruction student. So my daughter, who went through this process made worse by the handling of it, is now on home instruction, where she gets 0 instruction, save for some email messages back and forth with her teacher on how to graph rational numbers, which is not easy. And I think as a process, that is messed up. I'm not here to argue what should happen with the other student, but it's messed up that now my daughter is finishing the last 2 months of the school year on home instruction because she is not safe in school. And as a parent, I can't argue and say, oh, they'll protect you, it's all right. Because the message was very clear, what happened to you doesn't matter. And this meeting with this other student is just to check off a box.
Pam, thank
All
you.
right.
We're gonna, I
messed
imagine
up.
someone will reach out to you.
Well, I emailed the HIB coordinator on Friday at 10:15. I have not heard. So I don't have faith, a lot of faith,
I hear
that
you.
I will be responded to.
Laura Smith, 506 Woodlawn Ave. I want to start by saying I really do appreciate the conversation tonight about Policy 5112. I thought it was very informative. I did learn a lot about the pre-K program that I didn't know before, so I appreciate that sharing and exchange of information. I want to, though, as some of my peers pointed out, really focus on the concern is not with the pre-K program, but more with the K through 12 entrance, specifically K through 6. I want to just reiterate some of the things that have been said already, that there's not enough transparency to the process that parents need to go through, nor enough visibility. And we need that transparency and that visibility in order to work with the school district to be able to help to inform and make sure that we're passing the right of information along to the people who are doing the evaluations. I also want to reiterate that academics are not everything. My child would have passed every single academic assessment that you would have thrown at her. However, that would not have shown the social or emotional struggles that she is experiencing today. And you would not have seen those within a couple of short assessment sessions with her. You can systemize and standardize a process that also allows for flexibility. Both of those can be true and both of those can be accomplished. And there should be some room for that in the policy without having an overburdening process that puts parents through hours of meetings and hours of digging through and making phone calls without that transparency and visibility that they should be allowed to have through the process. The comment about the parents not trusting well-educated professionals is offensive as someone who is well-educated myself. The question was asked about whether or not we would question another doctor. I would absolutely always question a doctor, especially my child's pediatrician, if I didn't feel that the exchange between myself and that doctor was collaborative and respectful and in the best interest of my child. If I didn't feel that way, I would find myself a new doctor for my child. Other local school districts leave it up to either the parent or a more collaborative discussion between the parent and the school district, or the principal at that individual school when it comes to school entrance age. We're the only local school district that is taking this hard of a stance on that entrance. I do wonder, what is the fear? What is the fear with allowing these children who have birthdays within these 3 months to have more conversation with the school district? Is there a fear that somebody's going to say, oh, I'm going to hold my kid back so they can be the top athlete or so that they can be the valedictorian? Because that's not going to be the goal of the majority of the people who are going to come through this. It has not been made clear exactly what is trying to be accomplished with taking this hard approach. A process and a policy is certainly needed, but process and policy should be how we accomplish a goal, not the goal. The responses so far about what is the goal are sub-satisfactory so far, and I really ask that you make the goal of this policy clear to the parents who are voicing their concerns so that we can work toward a shared understanding and support of our children and our students. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who made a public comment. The entrance age policy is new this year. It was just passed in June, and so as those have said, the process is literally taking place as we speak, and the hope is that the process will show that it is working for most families the way it was intended. And thank you to everyone that spoke about their concerns about the school liaison officer. We are listening and taking notes to all of that, and we'll incorporate that feedback into our discussions with in our ad hoc committee. Moving on to Section 8, routine board business. We need approval, sorry. Motion to approve the minutes of the April 24th, 2023 regular board meeting, the May 6th, board retreat, and the May 8th special meeting. Motion to approve. And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Section 9 is the superintendent's report. Dr. McDowell.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you again for being here. Just wanted to reiterate again the honoring of our educators of the year. Their hard work and their kindness is something that we truly appreciate, and it's something we're extremely proud of, especially for their unwavering commitment to our students and our families. We also want to confirm that Mark Newby Elementary School has been awarded a $10,000 grant from Sustainable Jersey for Schools and the PSE&G Foundation. There was a presentation delivered by one of our parent leaders last month. And so the Sustainable Jersey for Schools strives to connect participating schools and districts with additional resources to successfully complete actions and make progress towards a sustainable future. So newbie nights from kindergarten through 5th grade will spend their gym, recess, and outdoor classroom time in the fenced-in side yard of the school. With this award, the blacktop will undergo a project revitalization, transforming it from a predominantly asphalt surface to an educational landscape where students and staff will be able to observe the benefits to the biodiversity by adding a natural infrastructure in a traditionally urban-style schoolyard. We would like to publicly acknowledge Ms. Kara Boyler, who's a volunteer, and the newbie PTA Vice President for leading this important work. We know that the Collingswood Public Schools Green Team leadership will be working, trying to build capacity across all of our campuses for this important work as well. And one last piece, we'd just like to present, and more details will be coming out, a save the date. Saturday, June 17th, the Collingswood Juneteenth Unity Day will be taking place in the location that's historically been for the Clover Market. So please put that on your calendars, and details will be coming out very soon. Section 9.01 is the enrollment report. April of 2022, enrollment was 2,244. Enrollment for April 2023 is 2,269 with the enrollment reports attached. 9.02.03.04 are the school safety drill reports, the suspension report, and the anti-bullying report that are also attached. And that concludes my report for this meeting.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. Next is Section 10, the Business Administrator Board Secretary report. Ms. Coleman.
All right, item 10.01 is a listing of the budget transfers for the month of April. 10.02 is your Board Secretary and Treasurer's report and financial statements for the month of April. 10.03 is the listing of your student activity cash balances for the month of April. 10.04 is your April food service financial statements. 10.05 is a listing of all of the purchase orders that have been issued so far in the month of May. And at 10.06 is a listing of the warrants that will be paid tomorrow morning pending approval this evening.
Thank you. The Buildings, Grounds, and Finance Committee is next. Mr. Craig will present.
The Finance, Buildings, and Grounds Committee reviews all financial statements, purchase orders, and warrants on a monthly basis. The committee also reviews and approves all contracts with outside service providers and oversees all maintenance and capital improvement projects district-wide. Tonight, seeking approval on the following items from 11.2 to 11.9 is the Board Secretary's report as was presented. 11.10 is the tax remittance schedule for 2023-24. 11.11 is RFP for postage machine equipment. 11.12 food service, the food management contract with NutriServe for next year. 11.13 is the school lunch prices set for the 23-24 school year calendar. 11.14 is a resolution in support of Senate Bill 3203, Assembly Bill 4835, which is essentially asking for certification flexibility for bus operators so that they do not require a CDL license, which would make it, which is one way to address the busing crisis right now and finding drivers for busing and hopefully getting costs down. So this is a statewide effort that we are putting support behind. 11.15, County Ed Services, Camden County Schools Wellness Interagency Network, joining there. 11.16 is the shared custodial maintenance agreement with the Borough of Collingswood. 11.17 and 11.18 are with Bayetta Home Healthcare Services for one-to-one nursing, both in person and then during transportation for the 2023-2024 school year. 11.19, Invo Healthcare Association's physical therapy services for next school year. 11.20 is an addendum to the ESS Support Services agreement, which is extending it through June 2024. 11.21, First Children's Services Behavior Consultation Services for next year, saying services a lot. 11.22, Shared Nursing Services with Oak Lynn. 11.24 is the approval of the newbie 10K, approval or acceptance of that 10K grant for newbie for Sustainable Jersey. 11.23, the peer mediation grant, a mini grant of approximately $500. And I had it written down here and I skipped it. Thank you. 11.25 is the acceptance of 10 to 12 donated iPads from Mr. Wesley Chang, a parent at Zane North. We thank him for his generosity. 11.26 is a use of facility request for the 4th of July fireworks. And that is it, seeking approval for items 11.2 to 11.26.
A motion to approve said items. And a second? Questions or comments from board members?
Just had one comment. I saw Mrs. Boilers in the audience today, and maybe we could give her a round of applause for that great grant. They're not easy to write. Thank you.
Yes, well-deserved, and she's working on another one for Sharp because she just doesn't stop. Any other questions or comments from board members? Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Henry?
Yes, except 11:15 where I abstain.
Mrs. Maya? Oh. Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Savarino?
Yes.
Oh. Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia?
Yes.
Mr. Stotts?
Yes.
Mr. Dilkus?
Yes.
Mrs. Caden?
Yes.
And Mrs. Maya, I'm sorry, you related your,
On
finance?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Section 12 is the Curriculum Committee. Mr. Chu will present.
The Curriculum Committee oversees and approves the district curriculum and assessment programs, as well as field trips, home instruction, co-curricular programs, and the school calendar. Let's see, so there are elementary school and high school field trips to approve tonight. Elementary school field trips are for Tatum, Zane, and Sharp. Let's see, give me a second here. And then there's, if I can pull it up. Sorry, way too many tabs. All right. High school field trips. We have one to the Barnes Foundation and another one for the 18 to 21 program to Dave and Buster's. Then 12.04 is an overnight field trip for cheerleading camp. 12.05 is the out-of-district and home instruction placements. 12.06 is the revised 2022 through 23 school calendar. So note on that, because we didn't have any snow days, we're moving the last day of school up one day, and that's part, I think, part of the contract basically requires us to do that. So last day of school will be June 20th. That also means that there will be an extra early dismissal day on June 13th, so just basically moving the whole end of school up by a day. Something to note there as well is that I think June 13th through June 18th, something like that, it's June 16th, yeah, 16th. So that week is going to be exam days, I believe, for the middle school and high school? High school, yeah, for the high school. And the plan is to have them dismissed at 12:10, which is before the elementary schools are dismissed at 12:30. And that is an effort to ensure that for families that need to have the older sibling help with pickup for the younger grades, that they can do so. Was there, I know there was also, I don't know if this is an appropriate time, but well, I'll ask in a second. And then, so 12.07 is a Sharp MD 3 to 5 student class size waiver. So we are submitting to waive to be able to add one additional student over the 12 student limit for the rest of the school year. And then I believe that's it. So seeking approval of items 12.02 through, 12.08 is project graduation, which is the annual high school PTA sponsored event. And so this is at the big event is in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, which is what an apt name. So yeah, so seeking approval of agenda items 12.02 through 12.08.
Motion to approve said items?
So moved.
And a second? Questions or comments from board members?
So I did have a question, which was about the calendar. I know there was some question of whether or not lunch would be still provided, like bag lunch or not on those days.
Yeah, Mrs. McPartlin reached out to the food service director, and I think all the schools are going to get their information tomorrow.
Okay, great. And then I do have another question about the 12.05. I don't know that we need to get into too deep of discussion here, but pertaining to one of the public comments, I'm seeing the reasons here as medical and discipline. Is that an accurate description of I don't know, we should go too deeply in this, but maybe we should just, yeah, okay.
Any other questions or comments from board members about the curriculum? Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Savarino?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia?
Yes.
Mr. Stotts?
Yes, except those items marked with the double asterisk where I abstain.
Mr. Dilkus?
Yes, except we're required to abstain.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Hayden. I'm sorry, I'm taking notes.
Yes.
I just realized everybody was staring at me.
Section 13.
The power of the stare. I'm like,
Yep.
oh.
Personnel Committee, Ms. Sheridan Celia will present.
The Personnel Committee reviews all recommendations for teaching and staff employment, considers co-curricular employment, and considers all professional development opportunities for staff members. At item 13.02, we have a retirement. Items 13.03 and 13.04 are resignations. 13.05 is a transfer. 2 unpaid leaves of absence at 13.06 and 13.07. The appointment of a long-term substitute at 13.08, 13.09 is a correction to a contract we approved at the May 8th meeting. 13.10, the appointment of a preschool teacher. 13.11, a middle school math teacher appointment. 13.12 is the appointment of a long-term sub replacement teacher. 13.13, appointment of a new art teacher. 13.14 is the appointment of a long-term substitute replacement teacher. 13.15 through 13.18 are the appointments of permanent substitutes for elementary and middle schools. 13.18, high school permanent substitutes. I'm sorry, that was the last one of that group that I just mentioned. 13.19 is the appointment of elementary and lunchtime and playground assistants throughout the elementary schools. 13.20 are supervisors at the elementary lunch level. 13.21 is the appointment of school security staff. 13.22 is an administrative internship. 13.23 is a student-teacher practicum placement. Agenda items 13.24 through 13.27 are various summer hour approvals. 13.28 is the ESY program approval, various hours. 13.29 is for the approval of AED training throughout the district. 13.30, summer IEP meeting time. 13.31, the appointment of various summer buildings and grounds workers. 13.32, summer district drivers. 13.33 are the appointment of substitutes and tutors. The travel expense form is found at 13.34. And this evening, I seek approval of agenda items 13.02, I believe, through 13.34.
Motion to approve said items.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Questions or comments from board members? Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Savarino?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia?
Yes.
Mr. Stotts?
Yes, except those items marked with a double asterisk where I abstain.
Mr. Dilkus?
Yes, except we're required to abstain.
Mrs. Caden?
Yes. Section 14, the Culture, Climate, and Policy Committee, Ms. Savarino will present.
The Policy and Regulations Committee reviews all updates and changes of district policies and regulations. 1402 is, we have a policy up for a first read, and it is the high school graduation policy is revised. And just a note on this, it is the reduction of credits needed to graduate from 130 to 120. And just some notes, this is consistent with neighboring districts. It was drafted based on feedback from Student Council. It retains 20 credits in math and English language arts. Students still have the ability to earn 130 credits if they would like. And it gives students, basically mostly seniors, flexibility to leave early to pursue work. And there's also have been conversations about coordinating study for some seniors on college campus. And then 1403 are policies up for a second read, and they are bilingual and ESL education, entrance age, attendance, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, student enrollments, and student records. So seeking approval of items 1402 and 1403.
Motion to approve said items? And a second?
Second.
Questions or comments from board members?
For 14.03, the second reading for policy 5512, the harassment, intimidation, bullying.
Yeah.
I was trying to pull that up, but in the regulation, at least for that, it states that parents will be notified within 5 days of the board being given the results of a HIB investigation, right? Does that restrict, I don't know if anyone knows, does that mean that parents cannot receive determination prior to. So for example, if like, it happens before, shortly after this board meeting happens, they have to wait until 5 days after the June meeting happens for them to hear the result?
Generally, it's after the board is during committee and has officially accepted the outcome, then the parents are then notified.
Okay.
Generally, it happens the day after.
After
After the board meeting.
board meeting, gotcha.
After the actual report has been approved.
Okay, so they do have to wait until we've approved the report.
That's my understanding of the process.
So that is also confusing to me because we don't actually approve the HIB report in section section 9, right? We only approve the HIB report in section 15 miscellaneous, which is the previous ones. So
So you're,
no.
so you're saying basically like if a HIB had been done in May, is that what you're saying?
Well-
We're approving last month.
Well, my question is if the regulation requires that the school district wait until they've notified the board of the results to notify parents of the results, and if so, like, why? And if the reasoning is that we have to approve the HIB results, we don't actually approve this month's HIB results.
So what generally happens is that the report comes out, the board has the opportunity to be able to ask questions. After the board meeting has concluded, the parents are then notified. The parents then have the opportunity to appeal the results within that process. And so then that following board meeting, it is approved after parents have either appealed or chosen to accept the results.
And then my follow-up question is I think for families that might have filed a complaint, like say today, right? And the investigation is done and completed this week or next week. Is it required that they have to wait until after our June meeting in order to hear word of the result of the investigation?
So that's generally been the process. I mean, that's generally been the practice. We can take a look at the practice, but that's generally been the practice to the following board meeting.
Yeah, if it's not something that a report that we have to approve, which I don't think we actually do approve this month's report, and that it's a practice that isn't mandated by, say, state statute, I would be in favor of potentially the policy committee looking at updating that policy such that parents would get notification of the results once they are ready, rather than having to wait for us to see it first.
So what I think we can do, because the policy here is one thing. It sounds like the regulation is what you're talking about.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah,
I was only
because it's usually how, the regulation is
Right.
generally how we go
Right.
about,
Right.
How
Yeah.
that policy ends up being put into place. Same with, like the attendance has a regulation that goes along with it too. So, so we can look at the regulation for the HIB policy, and see what the requirements are to make sure that we're obviously in agreement with that, but
Thank you.
I think that's a good idea. That's me. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Could I just ask a follow-up on the age entry policy? It takes into account the child's academic readiness, correct? But it also takes in SEL readiness? Is that correct?
That's our understanding. And teacher input, whether it be from a Collingswood Public Schools teacher or from a private or independent school teacher, and then parent input as well, yeah.
Are parents allowed to, get experts involved in the process?
I mean, I know that you can do doctor's notes or doctor's feedback or any intervention service that, OT, PT, speech, yes. So yes, I guess.
And did we consider, we're all about equity, that some parents may have more resources if they feel that their child has a reason to stay back, that, everyone's on the same playing field when it comes to presenting that evidence?
Well, I think that's part of what the policy is intended to do, is to be clear that not everybody does have the ability, right, to take their child out and give
Correct.
them an extra year of schooling, and so this kind of puts into place
Well, I
what we
guess
can
I'm
do. I don't-
speaking more towards the process, like, not everyone has the same resources to
Oh, I see
hire
what
a
you're saying.
child psychologist.
Right.
who
I don't know if,
has-
I don't know about independent ones, right, but they would have, everyone would have access to early intervention services in theory. Right, I understand it would be easier to take advantage of those for some folks than for others. But I think, I know Ms. McPartlin has left already, but what she would say is to the best of their ability, they tried to put all sorts of ways for parents to raise the issue or to present evidence that their child is either ready to go on to a grade above what their age says or stay back a grade to the best of their ability, which is, always the challenging part.
And I think that speaks to, that speaks to like more work needing to maybe be done on the appeals process, and which I think we all kind of agree, like that has not been worked out maybe the best that it needs to be. And so I think that speaks to that, right? It's not everyone has equal access to all
Correct.
things.
And this is a work in progress. We're going to take the data from this year, and there's a meeting with the parents, I understand, this week. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Severino?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia?
Yes.
Mr. Stotts?
Yes, except policy 5112, where I vote no.
Mr. Dilkus?
Yes.
Mrs. Caden?
Yes. Section 15 is miscellaneous, and 15.01 is the approving the anti-bullying report presented during the April 24th board meeting. Do we need to vote on that? Yes. Okay. So is it a roll call or an all in favor? All right. Any questions or comments about that before we?
I have a question. It's not exactly about this, but tangential. Can we get a monthly report or like monthly report about the like sort of discipline-related action that we've taken in the progress of those students? Yeah. Would that be?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Would that be? I guess you'll be able to share that with us via email or something. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate it.
So motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Mrs. Maya?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikulski?
Yes.
Mrs. Severino?
Yes.
Mrs. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheridan Celia?
Yes.
Mr. Stotts?
Yes.
Mr. Dilkus?
Yes.
Mrs. Caden?
Yes. We are at our second opportunity for public participation. Please stand, state your name and address, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Mr. Craig will be timing and will give you a 30-second warning. The public is reminded that attempts to resolve all concerns and complaints should first go through appropriate staff members and administrators.
Good evening. Again, Wayne Rossi, 114 East Palmer Ave. I know it's been a long night. I'll keep this brief. The one thing I wanted to talk about other than the SLO tonight was I noticed that there was there was an item early on about having curriculum approved in August, and I think that that's an important point I think, again, this is an important point where racial justice and other forms of equity and inclusion need to be part of, more strongly forwarded in the curriculum in the schools. And I'd like to see that as part of the curriculum writing process and the approval as we go into the next school year. And obviously to continue to build on that. But I do want to stress that I think that this is an important time, and not to let that particular ball drop as part of the policies the board's pursuing. Thank you.
Okay, that leads us to section 17. Motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a great night.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
I was ready. Thanks, everyone.